Hello and welcome to Blue Army TV. I'm sitting here in a slightly different video setting today, and that is the appointment of Rob Clarkson. You know, that news being announced yesterday. And look, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I think a lot of people are just very happy that it's not David Flitcroft, but overall, I think an appointment it's very different. It's not quite what I was expecting, but I'm very pleasantly surprised by the appointment. I think everyone kind of expected the sporting director from MK Dons to come over, but and I'm not sure if there's any difference in roles. We were told we were going to be getting a director of football. Instead, we've got a sporting director. In my head, they're the same thing, but it's odd that the word choice is different there. But look, Rob Clarkson, I think, he's a big step up from our last one in David Holdsworth, put it that way. He's got a range of different experiences, and that includes, you know, some experience even outside of the world of football, or at least in working inside a football club at the very least. I went through his career. The Carlisle United socials put out a lot about his career, but having a bit of a deeper dive into it, it is quite interesting to see the intricacies of what he's been doing. He started off, the very first thing on his LinkedIn profile at the very least, he was a lecturer at the City of Sunderland College after having some kind of scholarship at the Sunderland Football Club. He then moved up to part-time coaching at Sunderland. He was there for 4 years and 1 month. He then became a lecturer at the East Durham College for a year and 5 months before moving to a very high-profile job in comparison to what he'd already done, as he became an under-12s to under-14s lead performance analyst, and he served in that role for 1 year and 1 month, his first real role in the kind of operations at a club. That role expanded from under-12s to under-14s to, you know, a year later to be under-12s to under-16s performance and analysis coordinator, which he did for a year and 6 months, before finally the role that took up the vast majority of his time at Man City, performance analyst for the under-18s team for 2 years and 5 months before moving to Glasgow Rangers, where he picked up a different role. Instead of focusing on players already at the club, he had a look at players from outside the club he was working at when he became a first-team scout, and he did that role for 2 years and 9 months before being promoted to lead domestic scout, which for me, if you look at his roles and his career, is the most exciting one. You know, pretty much with these big clubs, domestic scout, shouldn't have to tell you this, they'll look at players within Scotland and they'll have international scouts going to other leagues around Europe as well at these big clubs, but he took up the role of the lead domestic scout. So, you know, any transfers within Scotland, or I don't know whether that expands down to England, but look, it's an exciting job at a very high-profile club. But anyways, he did that for 2 years, and he was at Glasgow Rangers all in all for just under 5 years before he took up a role at the England setup, where he became a talent ID scout person. I'm not gonna lie and pretend I can know exactly what all these roles mean, but you know, big words. And he was the talent ID lead for the under-17s team all the way to the under-21s team, and he did that job for 2 years and 3 months before, on the 31st of October, being appointed as Carlisle United sporting director. Look, in his time across the footballing pyramid, he's been to Glasgow, he's been in the England setup, and he's been at Manchester City. I can't help but think he would have gone very well with Paul Simpson, with his Man City connection and his England setup connection, but we were all very impressed by Paul Simpson's range of connections across the footballing world, and I think a big thing can be said for the England setup in that, you know, you get to interact with players from clubs all over the 92, especially when you're going all the way down to under 17s level. So I do like the fact that he's got connections across English football, in Scotland as well, and at Man City. So plus all of his little other, not to demean the other careers, but other roles that he has partaken in. And like I said, he's not someone who's done this role before, which might be a slight cause for concern. But if you look at the range of stuff that he's done, and you look at the range of connections he'll have, and his experience at managing different, or kind of analysing different levels of different clubs, it does stand to reason, if you look at outside of his Glasgow Rangers career, that most of the things he's done has been in youth football, which might be a big indicator as to what's going to happen at the youth system, because the PTX have said that the sporting director will come in and will have a big say in youth team developments, and they have alluded to changes in our youth team for a long time without actually doing anything. Maybe that's the first step in this appointment, and is maybe a big green flag for them in terms of why they appointed him, while also showing that he'll have been there during Rangers' Premiership title win. He's been there for he had been there for a long time, and it's good to see him have that kind of experience at first team football as well. It's how to scout them players, how to ID players with good attitudes, good attributes, that kind of thing. But look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm completely clued up with how these kind of roles work day in, day out. But what I will say is that without having direct experience in the job he's been given, he has a lot of experience and a lot of encouraging credentials on his CV to prove to me that I think he can be very good at the job. And he's such a step in the right direction from David Holdsworth. And I've been crying out for a director of football for a long time, or a sporting director, or whatever you want to call it. And I do think this is a step in the right direction. I've questioned Mike Williamson's appointment, but I do think the PTX have got it right here with the sporting director they've employed. And yeah, obviously only time will tell. I think, if there's been rumours of more free agent players training at Carlisle, maybe his job starts there with signing them players up. But, he's got 2 months now before the start of the January transfer window to get himself embedded in the clubs. And it does raise some questions as well. Like, with him here, what's the role of Greg Abbott? How big a say is he going to have in the management side of things? I think what the PTX are trying to do is this whole thing that Brighton and Bournemouth and all these kind of hippie, modern Premier League clubs do things where everything's done by committee, which in turn would be, head of recruitment, which is Greg Abbott at the minute, sporting director, the head coach, the chairman would all have a say in certain signings or how things are being done at the club. Organisation by committee. But yeah, like I've said, I'm excited by it, and I'm very encouraged by what other people think as well, because with a lot of negativity at the club at the minute, it's nice to see fans unilaterally being excited by an appointment, and I think I was quite surprised by that, especially with his not having done this exact role before at any other clubs, and especially with the failure to get obviously their first choice in the MK Dons director of football. But from what I've seen online, people are very excited by this appointment, and in my opinion, rightfully so. He looks very... If you look at his roles at other clubs, he's very data-driven, which is another thing I think the PTX want to be more at. Not necessarily Moneyball type stuff, but they've invested a lot of money into new ways of scouting, which I think might be new to Greg Abbott, not so new to this new guy. But yeah, let me know what you think. It's interesting. It's certainly one to look into and one to be excited about for the future, I think. But maybe I'm just jibber-jabbering. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and in a bit.